Pet Sematary is the latest Stephen King adaptation to help us mull over a bit until Andy Muschietti's continuation to It, which the first part was a landmark in horror films and a movie that I loved. Somebody who hates horror, who's basically a pussy who gets scared at everything, and I love that movie. Wow, big shock. Anyway, this film, Pet Sematary, is the remake of a film that came out in the 80s, 1989, I believe, and it takes place in Maine, as all of Stephen King's work happens to take place in, it seems, and we follow this family, the Creed family, who have just moved into a farmhouse in Ludlow, Maine, and there's nothing normal about this area. The house is situated right next to a road that has semi-trucks driving at dangerous speeds at various points of the day, and not only that, in their backyard is like an expansive area of woods, and somewhere in those woods is a graveyard where people take their dead pets to bury them. And, you know, around the time that they discover this pet cemetery, strange things start happening, and I'm talking about those of the supernatural variety. I keep the plot vague, but which I'm sure you already know about it because either you know about it because of pop culture or because the trailers spoil a lot. I tried to forget most of what I saw in there, but I was only able to forget one thing. Excuse me. And I'm surprised that I was actually able to forget that thing, and it was probably one of the more predictable parts about the movie. Now, before I get into my actual thoughts on the film, I'm gonna do a little disclaimer that I always do, and this is for those of my uninitiated, you know, those who've never seen any of my videos. The way that I break down my thoughts is that I do a pro and con list. You know, pro is everything that I liked, and the cons are things that I either didn't like or found lacking in a certain quality. I feel that I do have to explain that because I have had people comment on my videos before saying that they didn't understand how I was going about it and if I liked a certain thing or not. So I'm hoping that this actually makes it a little bit easier for some people who maybe have a harder time understanding that, which is completely fine. But anyway, I try to keep the pros and cons separate, but there will be times where I use like a pro to transition into a con because it works out, or even vice versa, but again, I try to keep them separate. Okay, there's your disclaimer. Let's go ahead and get into the review. Jason Clarke plays the patriarch, Lewis Creed, and gives an outstanding performance. I've mentioned before in a few of my reviews of movies that he's been in that Clarke, for me, is one of those actors who doesn't feel like he's acting. Like, it feels like I'm watching a legitimate reaction to events that are occurring around them. And I feel this way about people like Michelle Williams or Al Pacino. But anyway, Clarke does a really great job as coming across as this guy who's really set in his beliefs and his way about things, particularly religious beliefs. And he sees many things during this movie that make him question these beliefs. That being said, though, the character, aside from maybe that little tiny thing, isn't really compelling. He's just bland, and we just so happen to be following him. He has no backstory. We have nothing to latch onto. You know, in order to better connect with him. He's more of a character that we use to look on at events as they're unfolding, and, you know, for the majority of the film, I had actually forgotten what he does for a living. We see it in one scene, and then that's it. Amy Schmitz? Okay, I'm pretty sure that I butchered that name, whichever way I put it. Is without a doubt my favorite performance in the movie as the mother Rachel. Unlike Lewis, she has a lot more to her character. We see a tragic backstory that really destroyed me when I discovered exactly what it was, and we see how her past affects her. Because it's a really traumatizing thing. It's affecting her to present day. It's something that happened when she was a child. And I honestly believe that she should have been given more focus in the film. Hell, I would actually say that she should have been the main focus of the movie. She should have been the main focus and given a lot more character. I feel that everything that happened going forward would have been a little bit more... It would have had that extra bit of oomph to it if we were following her instead of Clarke's character. The children were pretty good as well, but the standout by far is the girl played by Jetty Lawrence. I don't know, her first name is something that I can't spell very well. I think it's Spanish or something. But anyway, she really sold her character for me. And as an actress, she was given a lot of material to make a hell of a performance. And the script demanded a lot of her. And she executed that demand in a way that just seems, I don't know, it was seemingly effortless. The film's primary highlight for me is in its design. The atmosphere is super creepy and macabre and dreadful. The cinematography brings out some gorgeous shots that also play with that feeling of, well, every single adjective that I listed there and also a few more that I couldn't think of. And the editing is so crisp that it makes way for some interesting transitions that really make the audience question reality at some points, which is honestly good considering that the film has that supernatural element to it. And sadly, I will start the cons off by saying this. The film gets the most interesting after the first act, or maybe even the second, not second half, but like in the second half of the film, it gets interesting. I'm keeping this as spoiler-free as possible for those who aren't aware of what the plot is, as I was not. But everything in the second or third act, or hell, even just the second half of the movie, for me, I don't know. It takes a lot of setup in order to explain to the audience what the Pet Sematary is, and what it can do, and the consequences and results of you know, utilizing it. And because of this, we get at least half of a movie that's chock full of expositional dialogue, where all the characters are just talking about their lives and their experiences, as well as the local history, which is fine. Exposition is useful to a point. I'm not saying that it's not, but in a visual media, it's preferable that you show rather than tell. And there's a lot of telling in this film. There are some flashbacks that let you in on things without telling you outright, particularly with the mother, but again, so much explaining through the dialogue, and it feels like a blood-curdling instruction manual, and that's not necessarily needed. And maybe there are some of you who feel that maybe sometimes it is necessary, especially if you don't know what the Pet Sematary is, which I get it, that's fine, but this is the way that I'm looking at it. People, for the most part, or no, for the majority, people know what the Pet Sematary is, even if you're not a horror fan like me, or you don't know the plot of Pet Sematary, also like I didn't, you still know what it is and what it does. The Pet Sematary has become, it's just become something in pop culture that everybody knows about. Just like the twist at the end of Empire Strikes Back, or the millions of movie quotes that everybody knows because it's just become part of our culture. And you know the quote even if you've never seen the damn movie, or even if you don't know it was from a movie, you still heard it. But once the filmmakers stop focusing on having to explain things to the audience, the film feels so much more different, like some shackles were torn off of them, and the film can focus more on being just an entertaining, well-made horror flick. Back to the discussion of exposition, though, that's the primary use of John Lithgow's character, Judd, who happens to be the Creed family's new neighbor when they move into the farmhouse. He's primarily used as a expositional mouthpiece in this movie, and that's really disappointing because, like Rachel Creed, he too has a backstory, and there are even some things hinted at late in the film that showcase his character even further to, you know, make you feel for him. But that being said, Lithgow is really good in this movie. One of my favorite performances in the movie, and one of my favorite performances of his in a while, maybe even in his lifetime. There's also a heavy use of jump scares. Now, I've mentioned before, and even earlier in this review, that I'm easily scared by anything, and that's still true. But I've become more consistent with watching and just going out to see a horror movie, that now I can notice when certain things like jump scares are coming, or maybe if they're a little bit too much, and also see if certain elements about a horror movie are done well or not. I don't have to wait until the second showing, or the second time I watch it, in order to catch these things, which honestly really helps. But okay, I'm getting off topic. The jump scares in this film are, a little too noticeable, and I'm talking about the ones that actually happen. There's actually a few moments closer to the end of the film, mostly in the third act, involving the family cat. There'd be a terrifying moment where, where characters are searching for something, and then the musical score is just ramping up very slowly to, like, a climax sort of thing with the jump scare. It's amping up for that scary moment, and the jump scare happens, and it's just the damn cat sitting, doing something, like looking around or, like, licking itself, and that's supposed to make us feel a little bit better, but then, the actual jump scare happens, and then we're all thrown off. The issue is that it happens way too consistently in the third act to where I feel like most of us stopped caring. I know I did. In summary, I thought that the Pet Sematary was really good. It had great performances, though Lithgow and Clark, through no fault of their own, were brought down by their characters. Clark's being stodgy, and Lithgow's being the expositional mouthpiece, as I mentioned. And it also has that great horror atmosphere. I especially loved that editing and those transitions that they made. But it's brought down primarily, just the one thing that brings it down from being a great movie, really. I almost thought, while driving home, I thought it was a great movie, but thinking about it now and how much this bothered me, it's brought down by primarily being a guidebook to the Pet Sematary in the first half. And I don't know, it's definitely a fun time at the movie theater if you're going to actually be, if you're going because you enjoy being scared. And those are my thoughts on Pet Sematary. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't hesitate to hit that like button. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button so you can keep up to date with everything that goes on the channel. And don't forget to take the conversation down below in the comment section. I really enjoy seeing and knowing what you guys think about a movie or the topics that I talk about in my videos. Now all that's left to do is say thank you once again, farewell until the next video, all you moviegoers, casual moviegoers, and movie fans alike, and keep on being awesome.